Everyone, Tim here with the Enchanted Wilds patch rundown. This is our first patch rundown of the set, which means we get a new color scheme, new font. I think everything looks much brighter. We're away from space. A lot of things to talk about as it's the first patch, but this one is only going to talk about what's different between Space Gods and Enchanted Wilds. All the new content about the champions, traits, and wisps, that's not going to be here. You're going to have to check out the game to see what's new there, but also we have a video from a month ago about me going over the champions and traits if you want a little pre-homework, but definitely just jump in and check it out. It's a really fun set. Let's get into it. All right, the biggest thing to talk about is Enchanted Wilds is our Unreal transition. Our old system, which I'm going to refer to as Hextech, was kind of built in tandem with League, right? It was kind of built off of League, which meant it had a lot of limitations because it really wasn't meant to be for TFT, right? So now we're transitioning to Unreal, which means that everything is for us, right? We built it. We can do a lot more cool new things, and we're going to see a lot of that in the future about, hey, new opportunities. Just, I don't know, everything just feels a little bit more powerful to do. But in the short term, TFT is a really complex game, and I think it's a different challenge between building a new game and building one that already exists, right? Because players have a lot of expectations about what the feel is exactly, these small things that you interact with a ton, and we're still working on getting that right. So here are some notes going into the first patch. Again, I'm not the engineer. I don't have all the specific details. Definitely check out the patch notes next week for our full comms about this. But as a precursor, there's going to be bugs, right? At the end of the day, this is the biggest thing we've done in TFT, honestly, and there will be bugs. We've squashed a lot of the major ones, things that really ruin the game or just, don't let you into the game. We've definitely handled those. But there's going to be a lot of small ones that are going to take time to get right. And the best thing you guys can do to help us, everyone can do to help us, is just report them and know that we're listening, right? I think the more detail we get on bug reports, the more bug reports we get, the better we can know and push to solve them. And there's a few other things with the first patch. The first one is that there's going to be some longer initial load times, so be patient with us there. Again, not only is it a new engine, it's a new hookup about how everyone gets in the game. Similarly with that, there's going to be a larger initial patch, so don't freak out when you see, oh my gosh, this patch is going to take a little bit longer. And the most noticeable thing is that if you've played on PvE, there is no mini map, which also means you cannot ping, right? That is a huge part of, playing TFT is being social, going to other people's boards, spam pinging their like high rolls, spam pinging their low rolls, stuff like that. I think that's really important. But since we are no longer in the League kind of engine, we don't really need this mini map here. It didn't really do much for the most part, so I think it was a fair thing to remove it. But the one thing it did do was it kind of signaled where the pings were. So we're working on a replacement for that, right? We think it's really critical to have, but it's probably not going to be the mini map, and that'll be coming in the near future. So as always, check out the patch notes for all of this, but let's jump into the stuff that I am better at talking about, which is the gameplay. As with every set, there are going to be system changes. The first one is going to be the carousel. It is back, right? Space Gods didn't have the carousel. That was more of their set mechanic. As we move to a different set mechanic, the carousel comes back, but it is slightly different. It's still going to be your champion spinning with items, right? Basically the exact same. But if you remember, set 8.5 glitched out with the glitch carousels. This is something like this. Now carousels have a chance to contain more champions and slightly different arrangements of champions. The items are going to be the same, right? No completed items, blah, blah, blah. Everything's going to be the same. But sometimes the carousel will just be a little bit bigger. Sometimes it'll have higher cost champions. Just a small variety to add to the game. We have gone through and made sure that they're not breaking the game, right? You won't see 5 cost on stage 2 or stage 3. They're still going to show up at a normal time. But some examples of this are, hey, on stage 2, the whole carousel is going to be all 3 costs or all 2 costs. Things like that, or 2 costs with some 3 costs. Just small differences. Keep an eye out for those. Targeting, this is one of the big rule changes that we were allowed to do with the Unreal Shift. Now that we built the game from scratch, it's a lot easier for us to control the rules rather than trying to dig through all of the League engine and try to figure out what breaks and what doesn't break. Targeting is a big one, right? So what this means in previous sets is that when an assassin jumped on your backline and they were hitting your backliner and then you got stunned, you would then run targeting again, which means you're going to find the closest unit to you after being stunned, which is going to be that assassin hitting you, and you're going to start hitting that assassin. on the surface, that sounds like a pretty good thing, right? You're defending yourself against the assassin. That's pretty fair. But what this meant was there was a lot of weird conflicting priorities here. If you're the assassin player, should you have CC on your team, right? Because if you put CC on your team, then you're just going to stun the backline, and that stun's actually going to hurt your carry because you're going to be targeted. And on the other hand, since anybody can do this and some random stuns happen, any CC can happen, this meant that assassins also needed to kill their priority targets a little bit faster because they were at risk of dying the moment someone targets them, right? Which means their damage is super higher. It leads to this unhealthy cycle. So I think a cleaner rule that also makes more sense when you're watching combat is after you are stunned, you will keep your same target, right? The only things that are going to switch your targets are your target dying or your target leaving your range. So this means that when the assassin jumps on you, you get stunned. You're going to go back to hitting that tank. You need to kill that tank before you can target that, right? And I think that matches more of our rules of the game, rules of roles, which is, hey, if you want your carry to stay alive longer, build a strong tank to protect your carry, not this weird invisible rule about targeting. So a cool upgrade there. It's been out all of PvE, and I think we haven't really seen any major disruptive things, so generally think it's positive. PvE, this is more of a bug fix. If you lost a PvE round, whether to a DC or you accidentally didn't play a board, your PvE loot would always flow to the next round. This didn't happen on stage 4, 7, and later due to how PvE rounds were set up. But if by some chance you disconnected and you lost to the stage 4 round, now your loot will flow to the next round. Encounters, small encounter changes here, nothing really that big. We just had to remove some encounters and we want to keep the pool about the same, so we added new ones. We have a completed anvil start, so you start with a completed anvil. We have reroll sub, which is a healthier version of reroll start since it's less skewed towards stage 1 and stage 2. Then we have item forge. This one I think I expect to be updated a little bit later. I think it's too close to the completed anvil start. This is mainly because we wanted to experiment with giving a bunch of items in the middle of the game, and then we had some like clarity concerns with that, so we moved it to the earlier part of the game. But when we moved it to the earlier part of the game, it kind of looks way too similar. So I think this will be changed in the future. And then we have 3 removed encounters. One is loot sub. This will be coming back. I think just the overall burden of putting it in Unreal when we had a bunch of other things to do was really, really high. But this is a fan favorite, so it will be coming back. Artifact Anvil, I think I'm going to go into it more on later slides. But we really want to limit the amount of artifacts in the game. And I think having a universal encounter do it is kind of not necessary. Then the reroll start, as I mentioned before, a little bit too narrow on strategies, so we're removing that as well. All right, artifacts for set 18. I think this is a really, really long topic, and I think some of it extends from past sets. But I think a big learning we're taking forward is that TFT needs transformative, memorable moments to feel like a deep, replayable game, right? Because I think if you go through and you play all the champions in a set and you're like, okay, I played all of them, they all do something I know what to do with them, there's kind of not much left, right? There's got to be ways to play traits different way, play champions different ways, really transform your game into something you don't usually get. And I think artifacts are a great vessel for that. They're supposed to be that. But I think over time, since set 15, which we, for a good reason, nerfed them a lot, they've kind of just become stat sticks, right? And I don't think just pure stats are a valid spot to have artifacts. I think they should be very sharp transformative moments for your champion. That also means we have to balance them, right? We can't have 2-1, you get an artifact and you're instantly going to win the game or favorite to win the game. If that happens, we definitely have to nerf them. But I think there's a lot of room of 1, artifacts that just give stats, and 2, artifacts with cool effects that just have had them extremely nerfed. I think there's room to adjust them out. I think the trade-off for that is that if we're going to have artifacts be these big memorable moments, they can't be as common, right? They can't be in every game. You can't have 2 every single game. You definitely cannot have 3. And so that's why our system before Enchanted Wilds is going to be adjusting these artifacts, adjusting how often they appear from other systems, and really making sure that when you get one and you find that champion it really works on, you're getting something special, memorable. And so that's going to be our plan here. Just a few balance adjustments to account for that. Aegis of Dusk. This one I think is still pretty boring, but it's supposed to have this fantasy where if you build a bunch of MR, you do damage and you kind of heal up and stuff like that. So that's been buffed. Blinding Jewel is probably a really good example of this. This thing had 60 AP because we really wanted to just be generically an AP item that had some MR Shred. But that meant you never got the fantasy of this item. Now, if you actually put it on a dot champion, it's going to be less AP. So you're going to have to get that power from getting them to 0 MR. Donkor artifacts are a living system. So we have to kind of balance it around the new champions coming into the set. There's a lot of champions in the set that like Donkor, so this is a pretty big nerf. But trust me, this is still one of the most exciting and transformative artifacts in the set. Fishbones, we previously took the range off because we had a lot of range granting artifacts. But that kind of just left the item as stats, and it was literally just a stat stick. So we decided to go back. Right, we're giving it the range back, and if this becomes a problem, we're always free to reduce it to 1 or something like that. And we've had the offensive stats. So this does mean some backliners will be able to hit your backline, but that's going to come at the cost of being much lower damage. And I think this one makes it much more memorable as an item. It's got a much more sharp set of users. So I think this is overall a good change. Eternal Pact, just going to be strong in the set, so we nerfed it beforehand. Hellfire Hatchet has always been a very good melee item because it gave you everything, right? It gave you AD, HP, AS, and on-hit damage. When we do want it to be more viable on these like heavy, high HP tanks, I don't think it'll ever be better on tanks than fighters with this shape. But it's some ideal user supposed to be like set 16 Scion with a bunch of HP. You can put it on them and they'll do something really cool that a tank usually doesn't do. So we've taken the AD off, so it's much more going to be HP and on-hit focused. So it's going to be on tanks, and it's going to be on 3-star melee carries. Rapid fire cannon, we've kind of adjusted how melee champions work with range. Champions that would jump in, previously they would jump in with range and then be in melee range and not have any use for their range and die. A lot more champions now will jump in place and still keep their range, which makes range a lot better, which means we should nerf their range items. Silvermere Dawn, this is kind of a shift to make it more of a fighter item rather than a tank item. And Static Shiv, it's supposed to be about lightning, and you don't really see that much lightning, so we've increased the lightning by 50%. That also means we've compensated its stats for it as well. So all these artifacts are a little bit sharper, a lot more fun to explore. They do something, and they do that one thing really well. Talisman of Ascension, it's just been weak for a lot of sets, right? Especially after rolls when you don't gain mana from taking damage. You kind of just ascended and you would die a lot. We're compensating for that by when you ascend, you get a bunch of mana regen, so you get the caster spell and use those bonus damage amp and health a lot better. I think this item became a lot more fun when you actually ascend, so this is one of my favorite changes. Titanic Hydra, we have a lot of champions that work well with this item, so we had to nerf it. And Wit's End, we kind of wanted to put a little bit more power into the scaling of the on-hit, but this one is pretty minor here. And we have 2 returning artifacts, right? I think these are fan favorites. We've taken a few out. We're adding 2. One is Forbidden Idol. I think tanks have always been a little lackluster in their artifact selection, right? You have Indomitable, which is just a lot of tank stats, but doesn't do much else. This one is really sharp. We don't have its best friend, Iterating Locket, coming back. So this one is just going to be a pretty narrow infinite tank item. The cases you are going to go infinite, it's going to be pretty hard. So good luck. But I think as a base item, it's kind of like a Protector's Vow that gives you a bunch of max HP. So if you scale with max HP, try out this item. And the Mana Zane is just a fan favorite. I didn't put the effect here, but you get the first time you cast, you gain 110 mana over 5 seconds. It's kind of the reverse of Donkor. Donkor is a scaling mana item. Mana Zane is an upfront mana item. This is a fan favorite, really good with bigger casters or like probably best on low mana casters to spam their cast out really fast. I think a Loon is probably the best user. And the 2 removed artifacts, these are stat sticks. Death Defiance has always just been one of the oldest artifacts, so it's kind of time to rotate it out. It just makes you tanky. Sniper's Focus, similarly, after we took off the bonus range, was just stats. We don't want to introduce 3 range artifacts into the game, so this one seemed like the easiest to cut. Again, we don't want artifacts to just be stats, unless it's Triforce, which is at least funny in the sense that it gives some of everything. And Radiant Items, this is just going to be tuning based off the current set. We don't have 4-star Leonas. We don't have the Mighty Mech. So these solo tank items like Stoneplate can go up. Radiant Hand of Justice is just not that good of an item. It can be buffed. Radiant Steadfast Heart has been good for a while. Just an easy nerf here. And then now we go on to augments, the last thing. I'm going to leave this up. I'm not going to talk about it too much, but you can pause, you can read this. These are the augments coming back into the game. As always, we want to keep rotating our augments, adding new augments, making sure the set feels fresh. These are the removed augments. These is to buy space for the new ones. Again, the new ones are not going to be in this presentation. You're going to have to jump into game and find them out yourself. But overall, I don't think anything here is too crazy. No one's favorite augment was probably... Actually, aura farming is pretty sad. AFK going away is sad. But we have new ones coming in. But I think I'm a pretty fan of a few of the new augments, so definitely check them out. But here are the adjusted ones. We always balance on PBE based off what we see and the data coming in, and there's some easy wins we can do. Band of Thieves getting buffed. Birthday Reunion got reworked at the end of Space Gods, where you had this weird rule where you had to reach level 5 to get the 2 cost. What we've done instead is we wanted to siphon the power out of the medium reward, the second reward, which was a Thieves Glove, so we could keep the power in the immediate 2 cost and the immediate 5 cost. So we've made that middle reward a component instead. You will get it at level 6. So instead of a level 7 TG, it is level 6, get a component. And then it's back to its previous state. Bronze for Life has been buffed. Its damage amp is now 2.5%. Boda Bud slightly nerfed. There's a lot of good 1 cost that you can get on 2-1. Buried Treasure is buffed. And then Precision and Grace, it wasn't in set 17, but this is the augment where you get a bunch of attack speed and you dash. We can't name it Precision and Grace because Precision is a keyword now. So it's renamed to Challenger's Grace. Comeback Story nerfed. Healing Orbs is now a little bit smarter. It's just going to heal in a range rather than just always heal the lowest health, the nearest ally. And Unfortunate Strength is one of our artifact passes. I don't like that players can quickly just get 3 random artifacts. Even though it is random, it does mean that more often than not, you're going to hit with multiple artifacts. And I don't think that's really fair to do with our new stance on artifacts. So instead of 3 random as the cash out, you're going to get 1 extra artifact. So you're going to have 2 total still. And then a bunch of extra items as well. Going long, there's a lot of benefits to being a higher level in this set with Inferno and just a lot of scaling 5 cost. So we're nerfing this one. Living Forge has just been overperforming for a while. Also, it's one of the sources of multiple artifacts, so slowing it down. Luxury Sub, I'm actually happy we get to nerf this. It means the 5 costs are cool and special. But as I said, we have a lot of scaling 5 costs, a lot of exciting 5 costs this set, which means that Luxury Sub got a lot better. And a max build is a championship augment. We don't want to leave championship augments disabled for too long because we want to celebrate these moments. But it didn't need to get reworked. It was kind of too much of a 3-star 4 cost option. So we've changed it, right? You get rerolls up front like before, but now you don't get anything else unless you reach level 9. And when you reach level 9, you get the champion dupe, you get more rerolls. And what this is meant to do is that previously what you would do with this augment is you would sit on level 8 and you would just press your reroll key until you hit enough 4 costs, and then you'd use the dupe on whenever you got it later in the game. That was a pretty lame pattern and not really what we wanted. Now you need to go level 9 to get the dupe, which means 1, you have to be strong enough to go level 9. And 2, when you get there, you've spent a bunch of gold to go level 9. So then if you have a lot of gold to reroll and hit your 4 cost, go ahead, right? I think you've done enough to warrant the challenge of getting a 3-star 4 cost. Obviously, it's going to make it easier. It's still going to be primarily balanced around a 3-star 4 cost, but I think this one is a healthier version of the previous augment. And then some small changes here. Money Hungry, this is the 3-tier version, it's going to get buffed. Pandora's Bench is coming back as a silver. Previously, this was also a 3-star 4 cost issue. That was due to a small bug in the system where when you had a 2-star copy and you were transforming that copy, it would look at the odds of 1 copy instead of 3. So you kind of were just much more likely to hit your 3 and 4 costs. We've changed it. We've left it on PBE for a while, and it seems pretty okay, right? It's a fan favorite, so we're really happy that it's back. And then Slightly Magical Roll. When this gave you a spatula, initially it was supposed to be weaker than a silver, but I think giving the option to pick your exact emblem was way higher budget than a silver augment could allow. So now we're making it a random emblem, which means that if you roll a 6, it's basically branching out, which is still a strong silver augment, but much more in line with our frameworks. And that's it for the 18.1 changes. As always, go in, report everything you see, Give me feedback. I'm always listening. But it's a really exciting set, and I think it's one of my favorite takes on Origins and 5 costs we've done in a while. So go check it out. Thanks for listening.